This avalanche of books right now is like kind of out of control. Gonna need some drink. There's gonna be a lot of talking in this one.
Hey guys, it's Amanda over at AmandaReads, and today I'm coming to you with a video that I've never actually done before on my channel. I'm gonna be doing an unhaul, and I'm just quickly going to get into the reasons of why this is happening today. I've recently entered all my books into a spreadsheet on Google Drive, and I was calculating how many books I own, but I haven't read yet, so my TBR. And I had 223 books on my TBR. And that made me very anxious because I like to keep it to 100 or less, and I just haven't been facing the music for quite a couple years about my book buying problem. So I decided that I wanted to try and unhaul as many books as I could to get the number down closer to 100 books. I just felt like I couldn't really justify purchasing any new books when I had almost half of the books I own on my shelves, ones that I haven't read yet. It just didn't seem right to be spending more money on books when I wasn't even getting to ones I purchased over 3 years ago. So first I went through and I decided to get rid of any books that were rated less than 3.5 stars on Goodreads, because I usually do fall close to the Goodreads rating, and with over 200 books to read, I'm probably not going to grab the lower rated ones. Then I decided to go a little bit deeper and think about books that were series. And if I'd read the first book in the series, have I been wanting to pick up the rest, or has it just been like a I'll get to it eventually kind of thing? If it fell into the I'll get to it eventually category, I decided that it was probably time to unhaul the series, and that if I ever wanted to keep picking up the series, I could just go to my local library. Then I also have a lot of series where I haven't even touched any of the books. And my theory with that was, if I don't feel like I'm going to pick up that series this year, I should unhaul it. And if I do want to pick it up, I'll just get it from the library. Then I'm also unhauling a lot of standalones. I'm unhauling a lot of contemporary books because I find that I haven't really been into that lately. And then when I do read those books, it takes me a really long time to get through them. So I kept a lot of contemporaries, but I got rid of young adult ones that I just felt like I'm almost growing out of, because it doesn't really make sense to have them on my bookshelf. I've been reading less than 100 books a year, so to keep 223 books on my TBR will be over 2 years of reading without buying anything new. So that just didn't seem realistic to me, and although I don't want to get rid of a lot of books, it feels really good because I feel like my shelves are now down to really representing exactly what I'm into at this moment. I'm gonna let my friends and my family pick through them, and then I'm gonna sell them to my used book superstore that's near me. They only actually purchase books that are within 5 years of publication, so a lot of these I'll just be donating rather than getting money for them, but I figured if someone else will get joy out of reading them, I want to do that for them. So let's get into the 50 plus books I am unhauling today. So the first book I'm unhauling is Yesterday by C.K. Kelly Martin. I really love C.K. Kelly Martin's works, but I have so many that I haven't read yet. This one just wasn't as interesting to me, and I just didn't want to deal with it because it's a series. And I have The Arithmetist by Brandon Sanderson. It sounds interesting, but it's also really not a genre I really read a lot and enjoy. So since I haven't picked it up in about 3 years, I decided it could go. Next I have the Hunt trilogy, I think that's what it's called, by Andrew Fukuda. This is a trilogy about vampires, and I'm just really not into young adult vampire books at this time, and I've had these for a couple years. Next I have Losing Hope by Colleen Hoover, and I'm just not really interested in this part of the series. I haven't even gotten myself to read Hopeless yet, so I don't know, I just don't feel like I'll ever get to this one. Then I have The Luminaries by Eleanor Catton. This is just super long, and it doesn't really interest me. I'm not really into historical fiction at this time, so just don't really think I'm gonna get to this, and it's gigantic. Then I have Black Ice by Becca Fitzpatrick. I've heard some really negative reviews about this, and it's just, again, YA, and I'm more into like adult thriller suspense books rather than YA, so I just don't think this is my style anymore. Then I have the Monument for Teen trilogy by Emmy Laybourne. This one I was kind of on the fence about because it does have such high ratings, but I have other series that have like this type of premise, and so I just felt like I'd rather read those than this. Water for Elephants by Sarah Gruen. I've had this for so many years. I actually unhauled it, then repurchased it, and now I'm unhauling it again. I just don't ever really feel inclined to pick it up. Everything We Ever Wanted by Sarah Shepard. I do like Sarah Shepard's writing, but just not enough to really want to pick this over the other 100 and something books on my shelf. All the Bright Places by Jennifer Niven. I am interested in the premise still, but just don't ever see myself really wanting to pick this up. Mr. Penumbra's 24-Hour Bookstore by Robin Sloan. My mom read this and she said it was kind of weird, and it just isn't what I thought it was going to be about. After reading a little bit more deeply into the synopsis, it's just not something I'm interested in. Then I have the Au Pairs series Unreads by Melissa De La Cruz. This is just like a cute, fun summer series, kind of Gossip Girl feels, I think, and I'm just not really into those types of contemporaries anymore. The 13 Little Blue Envelopes duology, I actually recently hauled this. This is like within a couple months, and again, just not really my type of book anymore. Playing Dead by Julia Heberlin. I just have other books in this genre that I want to get to more than this. Since You've Been Gone and The Unexpected Everything by Morgan Matson. I've never picked up a Morgan Matson book. I know that she has a lot of fans, but again, I just haven't wanted to pick these up, so why am I holding on to them? Next I have the To All the Boys I Loved Before trilogy by Jenny Han, and this is killing me because I'm obsessed with these spines and I really want to keep them on my shelf, but I read To All the Boys I Loved Before a couple years ago and I thought it was cute, but I wasn't in love with it, and then I thought I wanted to continue on with the trilogy, but I've had them for so long and again I just don't feel like picking them up, and so I just not doing it. Getting rid of them. Then I have this Magic duology by Kathy McCullough, and it's like about fairy godparents. I just haven't wanted to pick it up. Then I have the Me Before You duology, except it's a trilogy now, I think, or just a series in general. I have not seen the movie. I have not picked these up. I do want to see the movie. I know he obviously dies at the end, and I know that like it might not be from what I think it's from, but I just don't want to read this when I know what happens at the end, when I have so many other things that I really want to read that I'm dying to know about the end. Me and Earl and the Dying Girl by Jessie Andrews. This just doesn't have great reviews. Again, just not really my style anymore, and I have the movie and I'd rather just watch the movie. The Control duology by Lydia Kang, which is Control and Catalyst. Again, bought these when I first started BookTube and I was just buying everything that anybody talked about, and I'm just not really into this anymore. Then I have the, I don't know what series this is, it's the Bad Romeo, Broken Juliet, Wicked Heart by Lisa Raven. These are supposed to be really, really great, like young adult, new adult romances, and I was really into these when I bought them at the time, but I just don't really go for this genre as much anymore. But just because of the ages of the main characters, I feel like I could have other books that I would relate to more. I want to say we're halfway through. So then I have the Anna and the French Kiss trilogy, which is Anna and the French Kiss, Lola and the Boy Next Door, and Isla and the Happily Ever After, all by Stephanie Perkins. By a contemporary romance, just not really into it. Also, that series hasn't been getting great reviews lately. Like now that it's had time to come out and the hype has died down, people are giving what I feel like more negative reviews. And I have the Burn for Burn trilogy by Siobhan Vivian and Jenny Han. Again, just the same genre that I'm just really not interested in right now. So that's Burn for Burn, Ashes to Ashes, and Fire with Fire. Next I have Panic by Sharon M. Draper, and this is about a girl that gets abducted, which is a premise that I'm always really into, but I've just heard that this is really written like kind of juvenile and that there's just really no development and it's just kind of like too quick. So not really interested in picking it up. Then I have these two books from a trilogy. I think it's called the Shadow Police trilogy. I have the first book, London Falling by Paul Cornell, and The Severed Streets by Paul Cornell. And my mom read these and she said they were really good. They were kind of like shadow hunters, she felt like, but more adult. And there's a third book called Who Killed Sherlock Holmes. And the reason I'm getting rid of these is because I'm so fed up with trying to purchase the third book, and I won't read these without having the whole trilogy because who only wants to read 2 out of 3? It is so hard to find that book in print. You cannot even find it in hardcover, and I want it in hardcover. All you can find is like mass market paperback or a different type of paperback, and I don't want to buy them all because I'm not that interested in this. Next I have Carry On by Rainbow Rowell, and I really liked Fangirl, but I wasn't really interested in this part of the story, like the fan fiction part. And then I started reading this and I just could think of Harry Potter, and all that reading this made me want to do was read Harry Potter instead. So like after 5 pages I didn't even want to read this anymore, and I just figured why keep it on my shelf even though it's beautiful spine and a beautiful cover. Why would I keep it on my shelf if I don't want to read it? Next I have Suicide Notes from Beautiful Girls by Lynn Weingarten. This is a purchase off Book Outlet. It's kind of like a suspenseful type of book, but I just feel like I already know what's going to happen in the end and I'm not really interested. Next I have The Lies We Told and Keeper of the Light, both by Diane Chamberlain. I actually got these books for free. Someone was giving them away at my school and I took them home, and I really do think that the 2 premises sound interesting, but I was skipping through this one and I saw like how it ended, and I was just so disgusted by some of the relationships that were taking place, and I just don't think that this is going to jive with me. Next I have The Here and Now by Amber Shares, which I still think is a really interesting premise, but again, I just haven't been willing to get to it. I have so many other books still on my shelf that I just don't feel like keeping this. Then I have Lola Carlisle's 12-Step Romance, and I've just kind of fallen out of love with this premise. It's about a teenage girl who like pretends that she has an addiction, and so she checks into a rehab, and I just don't really like the idea of that, just like pretending you have an illness and it's so easy to go to rehab, and like that you would put yourself in there, like romanticizing it almost. I don't know. I just don't really feel like this is one I would pick up when I have so many others on my list. Then I have Amelia Anna's Dead and Gone, and this one just didn't get great reviews, and again I have so many other books that I want to get to that have better reviews, so yeah. Along for the Ride by Sarah Dessen. I just feel like I've kind of outgrown Sarah Dessen books. I really enjoyed them when it was more age appropriate for me, but I'm just choosing more adult books now. The Way We Bared Our Souls by Willis Strayhorn. Again, just not really wanting to pick this up. Afterworlds by Scott Westerfeld. I just feel like I'm not as interested in this anymore. The premise doesn't seem as cool, and it just seems like a really thick book and that I would have to put a lot of effort into it, and it's just not something I want to do. The Program Trilogy. I'm unhauling this just because there's so many like novellas and everything that go with the series, and I don't even want to pick up the first one, and I like the Remedies, like not even the third book or something. I don't know. I'm not interested in this anymore. Chasing Shadows by Swati Avasti. This one has like comics in it, and I bought it because I thought it was a graphic novel, but it's like not a graphic novel, so it's just not what I thought it was, and I just haven't gotten interested in the premise in the 3 years I've owned it, so no. I have the Uglies series by Scott Westerfeld. I haven't picked any of these up. I'm just not really interested in the concept anymore. Then I have the 2 Stephen King books I own, which is It and 11/22/63. I'm sorry, but I have been trying to read this book for like 4 months, and I love a good horror story, and I absolutely hated this. I DNF'd it at about 400 and something pages. I'm so upset I invested so much time. I went online and I read all the rest of the chapter summaries to see how it ended, and I'm sorry, but maybe I would feel differently if I read the book, but I just couldn't bring myself to read it because I don't like Stephen King's writing style. And I just did not like the way this ended. I didn't like some of the events that happened. I thought there was some very unnecessary content, and so just, yeah, didn't like it, and therefore I'm also just going to unhaul 11/22/63 and just call it a wash with Stephen King. The final book I'm unhauling is Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clark. I tried to read this. I think I got like, I don't know, 20 pages in, and I just got very annoyed. This book contains like long ass footnotes, and like they're so prominent in some sections of the book that it just took so much away. The whole beginning of the book felt like I was just reading footnote after footnote after footnote. Like this entire thing is a footnote, and it's like way up here. So you get to here, then you read all this, then you go back up here, and it just broke up my stream of consciousness so much that I couldn't figure out what the heck I was reading, and I just don't want to read this. It's too big when I have so many other books. So when I started unhauling books, I had 223 on my TBR shelf, like I said. Now I'm down to 157 books on my TBR shelf, which means I am unhauling a total of 66 books. And although I still have a lot on my TBR shelf and I would like to get it down to more, I decided that to do that, I'm just gonna start attacking my series. So right now I'm reading The Fifth Wave to see if I like that book. If I don't, I will unhaul the rest of the series, and then I'll move on to another first book in a series, and I'm just gonna get a little bit ruthless with unhauling books. So this is my first purge with 66 books. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm sorry if I unhauled your favorite books. Again, I'm still interested in some of these books, but I just feel like when I'm ready to read them, I'd rather just take them out from the library. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, give it a thumbs up, and if you're not already, you can subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching, and have a great rest of your week. Bye!